Once again, good morning. A hearty welcome to the first plenary talk on Science for Society by Dr. Shiva S. Makki, former Senior Economist, World Bank, and Adjunct Professor, Ohio State University, on the second day of UASB Science Week 2021 PG Students Symposium. May I now request Dr. N. Srinivasa, Dean PGS, and a renowned scientist who has specialized in research on spider mites, to deliver the welcome address and say a few words about UASB Science Week 2021. Over to Dean PGS, Dr. N. Srinivasa. Sir, please.
Thank you very much. Very warm morning to all of you, especially to our today's speaker, Dr. Shiva Makki, and all of the participants, the PhD students and the faculty members and the key officers of the university. Before getting to the actual talk or the plenary talk from Dr. Shiva, I want to just make a mention of the Science Week, the importance and how the genesis of the Science Week. I want to just make a brief about the Science Week. This Science Week is actually organized as an annual event every year. This is the Science Week 2021 is the 8th in the series. And this is the major, the intention or the objective of this science event is to just inculcate the spirit of science in our doctoral and also the postgraduate students, and also improve practice and also understanding the science in their research program. And most importantly, to enhance or enrich their communication skill in terms of publications, thesis writing, and also for the transfer of knowledge to our stakeholders. I think the stakeholders of both farmers and also the researchers. That was the major intention. And this was actually started in the year 2014. And during this science PG student science symposium, all our postgraduate students, MSc students, they will be presenting their work in the form of posters, a part of their work in the form of posters. And the doctoral student, they'll be presenting the part of their work in the oral presentations. But because of the COVID pandemic, since last year, we have only restricted the poster presentation as a colloquium for the MSc Agri students. And it has been done at the department level. And this student symposium is being held virtual this year and also the last year, where exactly we have only the oral presentation of the part of the research work of the PhD graduating students. And they'll be presenting the part of their work through the oral presentations. And these oral presentations will be evaluated by the external experts. And we, for the sort of encouragement to encourage the spirit of science and also understanding, and also they're showcasing their findings. We are also encouraging them in terms of the awarding the prizes or for the presentations. So that is also one important thing. And this will be normally all science week programs will be inaugurated or will have a keynote address from the well-known speakers. And this time, I think Dr. Shiva, so he was also there. Yesterday's keynote address by Dr. S.G. Hegde. And that is what the intention of listening to the experiences of the workers which have actually achieved this one in their own field. And this time we have selected the speakers, including the keynote speaker from they are the alumni of US Bangalore. Really, I am proud to say that this time we have made it a very good event where this one mobilizing the leisure time of those. They are all from the same alma mater, US Bangalore, and they will be showcasing and also they will be addressing our students. That is actually as a sort of motivation or inspiring our students, and also they will be sharing their experience, and that will be definitely benefiting our students to a large extent. And this particular keynote address, and also we have the 3 plenary sessions in the following days. And today is the first day. We have the plenary session by Dr. Shiva. And this is actually under the theme Science for Society. I think we are aptly selected a very good achiever, I think he is well known for his strong communication and also leadership skills. I think that is also a contribution to the society at large. And all these pre-entry sessions will be followed by the presentation by doctoral students. And we have and all these doctoral students and under these 16 disciplines. Actually, they are grouped under 4 major disciplines and group. One is the crop production, where exactly we have grouped agronomy, soil science, agriculture, microbiology, horticulture, and forestry environmental sciences. Under this theme, they will be presenting their part of the research work. Under crop improvement, we have the disciplines genetic and plant breeding, crop physiology, plant biotechnology, seed science and technology. Under social sciences, we have the agriculture economics, agribusiness management, agriculture extension, and food science and nutrition. Under crop protection, we have the disciplines like entomology, plant pathology, and sericulture. And they will be presenting their work, sir, and it will be evaluated by them. And in addition to that, we have the plenary sessions tomorrow, that is under the theme Excitement in Science. That will be actually addressed by Dr. Kalidas Shetty. He was also an alumnus of our UAS Bangalore, and he will be joining us tomorrow. And then the following day, we have the scientific opportunities under this one, opportunities in scientific agriculture. It will be addressed by Dr. Sharmila Rudrappa. And she is also well known in that field of this one, gender studies and also the woman. And also she has made this one very good, this one achievement in the field of sociology and also the especially gender studies. And this is what about the, and also to right about the research and science, we are also encouraging the agriculture entrepreneurship. And we have the agri startup programs. We are inviting concepts from the UG and also the PG students. And that will also be evaluated by the agribusiness, this one achievers, and they will be evaluating it, and it will be suggested for incubation centers, and also that will also be facilitating them to have the funding from the agri startup program and on a big scale. That is actually, it is the flagship program of our Prime Minister, and this will also facilitate them to mobilize funds for this. I think with this, and also during this the doctoral presentations, there will be 104 students. They are presenting their work. They spread over the 4 days. It started from yesterday. And with this brief introduction about the science week, I just request Dr. Shrikant Murthy to just introduce Dr. Shiva Makki, and also I will request him to deliver the today's this one theme lecture on Science for Society. Thank you, Shrikant Murthy. You can just go over.
Thank you very much, Dr. Srinivasa, Dean PGS, for your succinct welcome address. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Makki Shiva Subramanya to the participants of Science Week 2021. Makki is a small village near Napoklu in Kodagu district. By the time he started schooling, his family had shifted to Sakleshpur Taluk, where he had his primary and high school education. Makki Shiva graduated from US Bengaluru in 1983, completed his MSc in Agricultural Economics in 1987. For his PG research, he worked on yield gap analysis in Ragi. Between 1986 and 1989, Makki Shiva taught courses in economics, finance, and marketing as university merits teacher in GKVK. In 1989, he moved to USA. Those days, there was an exodus of talent from GKVK to USA. Kalidas Shetty, Muralidhar, Dinesh, Vidyashankar, all classmates, and a few more. Makki Shiva did his MS in Resource Economics, MA in Economics, and PhD in Applied Economics from the Ohio State University. Between 1990 and 1998, Makki Shiva, as postdoctoral fellow, research assistant, and teaching assistant, taught course in development economics to undergraduate students and developed a game theoretic framework to analyze international trade. Between 1998 and 2004, Dr. Makki Shiva was into USDA Economic Research Service and served as research economist and also as faculty at USDA Graduate School. There he examined economic issues relating to risk management, financial markets, biotechnology, biodiversity, and public policy. Between 2004 and 2020, Makki Shiva Subramanya was part of Development Economics, Knowledge, and Strategy Unit of the World Bank Group. Serving in that world's premier institute, he was team member of Tanzania Country Economic Memorandum, was responsible for development of groundwater improvement projects, advisor to Pakistan Water Security Diagnostic Project, task team leader of Global Development Project to develop research capacity in developing countries, managing editor of the World Bank Research Digest. Since 2013, he was responsible for management of the World Bank research grants. Dr. Makki Shiva Subramanya is credited for developing a new web-based grant management system, revising guidelines for proposal preparation, building extensive network of eminent scholars and institutions, serving as peer reviewers and partners for World Bank research projects, contributing to World Bank flagship publications, including World Development Reports. Makki Shiva is a team player with strong communication and leadership skills. Throughout his student life and professional life, perseverance has been the hallmark of Makki Shiva Subramanya. Dr. Makki Shiva, thank you very much for being an ambassador of US Bengaluru at the world's premier institutes. We are proud of you. On the personal note, I am here in this university as a teacher because of Makki Shiva, Vidya Shankar, and KK Subramanya. They cajoled and convinced me to resign the bank job and join the university. As a token of love, I would like to take Makki Shiva on a virtual tour of GKVK campus. Makki Shiva, are you ready for this tour? Of course, we'll be with you. Institutes, we are proud of you. On the personal note, I am here in this university as a teacher because of Makki Shiva, Vidya Shankar, and KK Subramanya. They cajoled and convinced me to resign the bank job and join the university. As a token of love, I would like to take Makki Shiva on a virtual tour of GKVK campus. Makki Shiva, are you ready for this tour? Of course, we'll be with you. Institutes, we are proud of you. On the personal note, I am here in this university as a teacher because of Makki Shiva, Vidya Shankar, and KK Subramanya. They cajoled and convinced me to resign the bank job and join the university. As a token of love, I would like to take Makki Shiva on a virtual tour of GKVK campus. Makki Shiva, are you ready for this tour? Of course, we'll be with you. We are proud of you. On the personal note, I am here in this university as a teacher because of Makki Shiva, Vidya Shankar, and KK Subramanya. They cajoled and convinced me to resign the bank job and join the university. As a token of love, I would like to take Makki Shiva on a virtual tour of GKVK campus. Makki Shiva, are you ready for this tour? Of course, we will be with you. We are proud of you. On the personal note, I am here in this university as a teacher because of Makki Shiva, Vidya Shankar, and KK Subramanya. They cajoled and convinced me to resign the bank job and join the university. As a token of love, I would like to take Makki Shiva on a virtual tour of GKVK campus. Makki Shiva, are you ready for this tour? Of course, we will be with you. We are proud of you. On the personal note, I am here in this. I hope you have enjoyed it. Dear
Oh, that
Makki
was
Shiva's,
fantastic.
Wonderful.
Oh my goodness, that's very, very special, Murthy. I mean, thank you so much. I mean,
Thank
that
you.
was, how did you manage those pictures? I had no idea that you have those pictures.
Yeah. And I had the pictures, and my daughter Soham prepared the video.
Mamma
Thank you.
mia, huh?
Dear Makesh
Wow.
Shiva Subramanya, the floor is
Yeah.
yours. We are all ears to receive your ideas. Please.
Okay. All right. Let me share my screen. Are you seeing my, you see my slide?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. All right. I am out of words, Murthy. I mean, thank you so much for this really kind and generous introduction, and you really surprised me. Uh, I I'm really thankful to you for such a nice introduction. I mean, it was very moving, and just to tell other audience that Murthy and I graduated together in the same commencement function at veterinary college, and I still remember those days, and it's still uh, uh, fresh in my memory. Thank you so much. To all the audience, greetings from Washington. Now, very good morning to you all, and this is for me here. It's past midnight. Hopefully, I won't fall asleep. So since it's virtual, it is. I always enjoy in-person teaching or in-class teaching, and even presenting seminars. But virtual is always difficult to keep the concentration. But I will try my best. Good morning to you all, and let me begin by congratulating all the graduating students. I believe that you have done something big in your life. You have achieved something special in your life. You now belong to an elite group of people in the society, because if you look at the share of population who have even post-secondary education, it is very, very small, less than 10%. So you are an elite group. Being in elite group, it also adds lots of responsibilities to you. You I don't want the list all those responsibilities for now. That can wait. This week belongs to you. This is your time. This is your symposium. Enjoy the attention, enjoy the admiration, and enjoy the time you get all this week. Enjoy your presentations. You are indeed the stars of this event. I am very thankful for the organizers to inviting me to talk about this, the linkage between science and society. Before I begin, I would like to say a few words about the institution that I am very proud of, that is UAS Bangalore. I feel really privileged and honored for this opportunity today, even though I'm here, virtually. UAS is the institution that really shaped me what I am today. I arrived in GKVK in 1979 and left in 1989. Those 10 years really sort of shaped what I am today professionally, intellectually, and personally. So when I left in 1989, I was really ready to face life challenges. I was ready to conquer the world. And I'm really grateful to all the faculty, my friends, the staff who supported me, who were with me all the time. And that really sort of gave me the confidence that that sort of I carry with me even today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's get started. We, I, I prepared this slide just to demonstrate how complex the relationship between society and science could be. Imagine you have about 100 wheels like this turning all the time, and they are expanding and contracting, and also they are moving forward. Any one of them can affect each other, each other, and also, of course, science and society. So, for example, you are a scientist, you have to take observations in your field every 6 hours or 12 hours. You want to go to field, but you get stuck in the traffic. So infrastructure matters, right? Similarly, the rule of law matters. The R&D investments matter. So they're all connected in a way to for the society and science to make progress, which is multi-dimensional, which is dynamic, and it is we will try to separate that out in a way that we can have a good discussion about the progress that we can make with science and society together. What I would like to do is bring that the complex relationship, the complex and multidimensional relationship between science and society into sort of four issues or four aspects or four dimensions, whatever, however you want to call it, that's fine. The one is, we know that science shapes our thinking, our way of life. Technology, for example, makes our life easier. It makes our life faster, makes our life better. I mean, to give you a good example is COVID. The COVID disrupted our lives, but we found a way to change our life using science and technology. The Zoom conference is a good example of it. It disrupted the annual symposium events, and now we are on Zoom and talking about it. This one, one of the examples that I always enjoy giving how science affects our life is the simple example of seedless watermelon, right? It really improved the quality of my life, because think about having to eat watermelon with so much seeds in it, and now we have watermelons without any seeds. So it's really fantastic. So whenever I buy watermelon, I'm always thankful to plant breeders who have come up with these ideas, right? So the science brings a lot of excitement in that way. I will leave this particular discussion for tomorrow for Kalidas Shetty to continue along the discussion of this as the sciences, how it shapes our life, how it is exciting, how we can make it more exciting. And I know Kalidas Shetty very well. He was my classmate. He's a brilliant scientist. He's a master storyteller, and he is a good human being. So I would urge all of you not to miss his lecture. It'll be wonderful. The second is the more in what my expertise is. Science drives economic and social progress. This is the science generates new knowledge, science generates new technologies, and they contribute to make, say, for example, increasing the productivity of land, labor, and capital, right? So, for example, the high yielding crops means the more food, it also means higher incomes. The vaccines is longer life, better life, the quality of life improves with the vaccines. So the science is very critical in driving this from where we are, both economically and socially. It plays a very significant role. The third aspect is science offers unlimited opportunities. This is a good example. Air taxis were fiction in the movies like 50 years ago. Now, our Cynthia, the trans, I forgot his title, but he's a minister. He was talking about air taxis in major cities. So this is going to be a reality. And similarly, the virtual meetings are going to be much better. Say, for example, the audience could feel the presence of the speaker right in front of them through holograms or something like that. Or those of us who followed Star Trek, watched Star Trek, we always enjoyed that energize option. So we go up and down the satellite, the starship and back to Earth by just saying, pressing energize buttons. So will that be possible? Maybe, maybe not. Or but we can never say no to the opportunities that science would offer. So this is the topic I think Dr. Sharmila Rudrappa will elaborate on Thursday, because she's going to talk about the opportunities and in what science would offer to us as a society. And the last part is the reverse of that. That is how society shapes our science and its progress in terms of funding, in terms of education institutions, in terms of policy, in terms of culture. All these play into the progress of science in our societies. So in this lecture, I would like to focus on the number 2 and number 4, that is how science drives economic and social progress, and also how we as a society shape our own progress in science. What this graph is, it looks a little bit complex, but this is also my story. my story of how I progressed from 1960 through 2020, and where I went from Sakleshpur to Bangalore to Columbus to Washington, D.C., and what happened during that time. Take, for example, we have that line going from where from the 60s to 2020. I grew up on a rice and coffee farms. It was a small one, but still it sort of sustained us. And the rice yields were like about less than half ton in 1960s, went up to about 2.7 tons in 2020. That's a great progress caused primarily, green revolution, which was facilitated by science and technology. When I was born in 1960, I was expected to live 42 years. And a child that is born in 2020 now is expected to live for 70 years, which is a tremendous progress. Again, it is the advancements in medicine, in health, and nutrition have all contributed to the increased life expectancy over this period of time. It's in a time scale, this is quite short. Another example that I would like to always give is when I arrived in US in 1990, for my very first telephone call, I paid $3 per minute. That was the cost that I paid. And in 2020, it is zero. The marginal cost of calling from here, I talk to my mother every day, and she wants to be on video call, and she says, "What's up, mother?" She would not even accept the audio call now. So it's that cost has come down from $3 per minute in 1990s, zero now. So caused by technology. And the last point I would like to make here is in the 60s, India as a country was almost a basket case. This was the time, just before or beginning of the Green Revolution, and we were in big how do you say, in in trouble as a country. It's almost a basket case situation. But over time, in from 1960 to 2020, we have grown into sixth largest economy in the world, with the almost closing on $3 trillion economy, which is a tremendous progress. There were ups and downs over a period of time, but the progress has been phenomenal and consistent, and it is it is continuing. So what I would like to sort of drive home the point here is the science is very critical, whether it is in agriculture, whether it is in service industry, whether it is health, in environment, in whatever it is. Science is the sort of the fundamental driving force that would help us move to the next wherever we want to go. All right, India is a country in a hurry almost, right? We really, there are plans, we are thinking about how India can be a $10 trillion economy. India would like to have about half of its population categorized as middle class. And India would also like to be the leader in agricultural technology, in biotechnology, in plant breeding, in these things, as well as in alternative energy and in health. So the question for us here and for the country is, can science help India achieve those goals? In fact, that was the question that I was asking myself when organizers asked me whether I would be whether interested in talking about the link between science and society. And for me, this is a very fundamental question, the how science can help to achieve what India wants to achieve as a country, as a society, going forward. I'm an economist. I'm a trained economist. So whenever a question is asked, or whenever a challenge is posed, or whenever I think of a solution, I always think in terms of what is required, what are the necessary conditions to solve the problem, what are the sufficient conditions to solve the problem. So can India become a $1 trillion economy? Can science help India to achieve it? The two necessary conditions for any economy to achieve those goals, or the broader set of societal goals, is that they have to have sufficient human capital, or the resources. They also have to have financial resources. After having sort of followed through what India is going through, and Indian resources, particularly vis-a-vis their dealings with the World Bank, their borrowings, and where they are borrowing, how they are borrowing, I analyzed quite a bit. My sort of assessment of the country, my country, is that India has both human capital and financial resources in plenty. For example, India really, doesn't need some Harvard economist or somebody from outside to come and tell Indians how to clean Ganges River, right? There was the World Bank gave a huge loan to India as part of the Swachh Bharat program. The loan was good. It was worth. I really liked the purpose with which India borrowed that money. But the idea that somebody from the World Bank with not much exposure to India be part of that project, I was not very happy with, because I participated in some of the brainstorming sessions, and I was surprised how little they know about some of the things that need to be done to clean up the river. I personally don't know the Ganges River, but I know what needs to be done at the Kaveri River, right? You start off with all the tributaries, the little ones, and you can build up the cleaning of any river in that way. Even the financial resources. I think India does have resources, but it's just that it is not being applied where it needs to be at the moment. So that takes me to what needs to be done. What are all the sufficient conditions? There are many that we can discuss, but I would like to focus on 4 of them that will help basically to mobilize both human capital and the financial capital. All these 4 and the necessary conditions and sufficient conditions, they all sort of move together in some combination, but I've separated it out for ease of discussion, right? So let's look at these 4 the sufficient conditions. So the first one is India really needs to invest more in R&D. I mean, I will show you some comparative numbers shortly, and it is obvious that what we are investing in India is not sufficient at this time. We need to invest in education. I'm going to do a little bit dive into that various aspects of education that needs to be looked at. And we need to improve the environment for entrepreneurship and innovations. And I heard from Vice Chancellor yesterday, and Dr. Srinivasa mentioned this one again today, how UASB is trying to inculcate that entrepreneurship in students, which is, I think, very, very important. I would even go on to say that they shouldn't wait until they are in the PhD program. They should be even at the beginning of their BSc AG program as part of their curriculum. And the similar argument can be made to improve science communication, which is becoming more and more important as we make more progress using science. Okay, this is why I think that India needs to increase more, increase its investments in R&D. For example, focus your attention on those 4 countries: India, China, Japan, Korea, and United States. I picked those 4 countries as a comparative number for India because I think those 4 countries should be the sort of the role models or the guiding countries for India to think about, right? So for example, China, which is a large, huge country like India, spends about 2.2% of its GDP on R&D, the total R&D, right? And Japan spends about 3.26% of its GDP on R&D. South Korea spends, 4.5% of its GDP on R&D. United States spends 2.84. It used to spend more, but recently it has sort of it has been declining in the US. So now the question is, are they spending a large amount of their GDP on R&D because they are rich, or they are rich because they are spending more on R&D? So when you look into particularly the historical data of the United States, which I have done extensively, one thing that emerges is that United States has been a huge investor in R&D, in science and technology, in R&D. Particularly, they did heavy investments in national security, defense, and it led, in fact, the discovery of the invention of internet was the investment that they made to connect different army bases at this in real time. So that, in fact, eventually led to what the internet that we have today. So they did huge, heavy investments in R&D, which led to new technologies and which they enjoy lots of benefits and which made them, grow even faster. So for me, I'm convinced that India needs to increase its R&D from, around 0.7% now to 1%, 2%, and I think the target should be anywhere around 5%. Israel spends about 5% of its GDP on R&D, and you see the benefits. I mean, the kind of technology that Israel now sells around the world is a product of that investment. Why this? One more graph here. The top 10 countries that spend on research. For example, China and USA spend like about half of the world's spending on R&D, and it shows. They in terms of patents, in terms of products they sell, all shows up because of the amount of research that they do, both basic and applied, and that has big payoffs for them going in the marketplace. This is a good example why we need to invest in R&D. This is the rice yield comparison between India and China in 2020, and I think the last year was 2019 or 2018. The difference, the per hectare yield difference between China and India is 3 tons, which for me is almost unacceptable. And I think the India needs to do, the research must help in terms of reducing this gap. I mean, increasing India's rice productivity from, what it is now, and double it over a period of time. And I think R&D is very critical. And this is the kind of yield gap analysis I did myself. And this was my just plug for my MS thesis. So you see the yield gap analysis in Ragi. Murthy mentioned about this thesis, and I'm glad I just took the picture of it, and here it is. I had Professor Ramana as the chairman of my committee. I had J.V. Venkatram, and I had Bislaya, I had Sundar Raj, and Professor Hawangi. And I had a star team advising me. And this is what I meant, that these are the faculty that really shaped me for what I am today. And I'm so grateful to these wonderful people. This is coffee beans per, yield per hectare. Again, if you see the difference between Brazil and India, which is it's really heavy. I mean, it's too much of a gap in per hectare yield. Somebody needs to investigate and find out why and how one can bridge this gap, increase coffee yields in India. And this is the labor productivity between China and India. Chinese labor productivity is like over $5,000 in, I think it is in 2020 US dollars. And whereas India's is less than 2,000. And that gap shows in terms of the quality of life the agricultural laborers lead in India versus China. So this is important, that the technology can bridge this gap and increase the productivity of Indian agricultural laborers tremendously. There's a big scope here. Okay, the second point, invest in education and research institutions. Yesterday, Vice Chancellor Rajendra Prasad mentioned many of these points, and I'm quite impressed. And today, Dr. Srinivasa also mentioned several of these points. I'm very impressed that the UAS is taking note of these issues. For example, the quality of education, not just at US, but overall in India, it needs some attention in terms of what we teach and also how we teach. The quality is very important. Yeah. And science education, the higher education, the entrepreneurship, the connecting basic and applied research, the very important aspect of any research institution is that they have a link up with the private sector, not only to get some revenue, but also make sure that the research is applied in or utilized and used to generate income and also help the society. Another aspect is I was looking into one of the studies that was published recently, the employability of the Indian graduates. I was a little surprised to learn that less than half of the graduates, particularly with the master's and the higher degree, were employable right away from the university. So there were a lot of CEOs of the company, they were complaining that the Indian education system needs to change to prepare these students to be ready for employment wherever they go. I think that's something that needs to be addressed. And then the communication part, whether it is communication within the group, within the sort of among scientists or between scientists, between teacher and students. I mean, all these, the communication, I think, should be part of the curriculum, so that you produce workers who are capable, who can communicate, who can offer leadership, who will have the entrepreneurial skills. I think this is something that I'm very happy that Dr. Rajendra Prasad and Dr. Srinivasa, they all thinking about it. And there's a lot of other things that each one of them we can discuss at some point, but I think you are already have thought through about these things, and I'll go to the next one. Oh, there is a slide. There's a slide here. This caught my attention. The slide here is it's a population breakdown by highest level of education achieved for those aged 15 plus. What I found very interesting is India produces about 95 million people who have completed post-secondary education, which is by far the largest in the world. However, which accounts only 7% of the total population. Compare that to Korea and Japan. Their population, nearly a third of their population completes the post-secondary education, which is, I think, should be the goal for India as well. The another point, the another number that caught my attention is under India column, you have India has 375 million children or kids or young adults aged 15 or less, 15 or lower, which is a tremendous bonus if we can make use of that early ages and train them to be future workers, right? So make them graduate post-secondary, tertiary education, and even higher. We can, I mean, if we have some way of even graduating, I mean, post-secondary graduates, a third of them, we will have nearly 100 million of them. So that is something to look at and something to plan for. Here is another graph I thought was interesting. What this shows is the researchers per million of population. And again, it shows how low the number of researchers are in India, particularly when you adjust that for population size. China is a good comparison point because we have more or less similar population. China has like 1,307 researchers per million people, whereas India has only 253. I think there is a really, really big opportunity here for increasing the the research institute. I mean, the size of the research institutions, the number of researchers. So they all sort of go together in some ways. And the third aspect of that is, Murthy, how am I doing on time?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is okay. All right.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't have any time clock with me. That is, yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. The third one is really improving the environment for entrepreneurship and innovations. I think this is very important, particularly in the to make science function in a way that we want that to be very productive. We really have to have the entrepreneurship and innovation environment where people can come and invest money and produce ideas or technology for which they will get benefits from, right? So what we need for such things to happen? So we need stable governance and policy framework. So these investors need to know that if they invest $1 million, that they have some way of recovering it. It's not some sort of black hole. Then we could have a tax incentives. The government or the state or the central government needs to make sure that the innovators get tax incentives. Both the public sector and the private sector can build both digital and physical infrastructure so that the science can flourish. Then the R&D platforms and networks are also important. And then incentives for collaborating between public and private sectors. So all these things sort of help the researchers to be part of not just the institution where they work, but also outside. So they can be scientists and also innovators. They are scientists. They are also entrepreneurs. So all these things make the science flourish in a society. Here is a good example of how the science leads to something tangible and people benefit from it. What this graph does is on x-axis you have the expenditure on the R&D. On y-axis, you have the share of the private sector in the R&D. Take, for example, India, which is about 0.6 or 0.7%, less than 1% of its GDP is being invested in R&D. And in terms of the private sector investment, it's about 40%, around 40%. So 40% of R&D in India is from private sector and 60% is from public sector, from the universities of these places, right? So compare India and Israel. Israel also has like the same proportion in terms of public-private investments in R&D. That's about 40-60. 60% of Israel's R&D investments come from public sector, but Israel spends up to 5% of its GDP on R&D. And if you look into the number of patents that these countries have able to get. The Chinese number is phenomenal. I mean, it's like in 2019, the top 5 patenting organizations in China, Japan, South Korea, United States, and in Europe, China has been able to obtain nearly 400,000 patents. And similarly, United States has around 270,000 patents. Compared that to India, which is like about 13,000, which is, almost nothing. So this is where the kind of environment India needs to build its entrepreneurs and innovations is very, very critical, because at the end of the day, these patents will start bringing revenues back into the system, and which is what triggers economic development. Here we go. The last one, the improving science communication. I think this is becoming very, very critical, particularly when what happened with the COVID now. The one aspect of COVID management, the pandemic management, has been the communication part. Wherever the communication failed, we failed in controlling the disease. So the science communication needs to sort of get special attention in making the science work for us, which is very important, because the the trust in science is important. Increasing social acceptance comes via good communication, and the science needs, or scientific progress can happen only when there is good political support, which translates into funding of research. So you can get political support, you can get social acceptance, you can improve the trust in science if you have a good science communication. It could be between scientists and policymakers, it could be between scientists and public, it could be communication between leaders and public, between scientists and students. All this needs to sort of looked at in a way, keeping the society in mind, keeping the progress of science in mind, keeping funding for research in mind. I mean, the basic necessity of that. This is something I thought would be interesting to see. Dr. Fauci is the sort of the point person for COVID management, and he had prepared a sort of a list of things that needs to be done to control COVID. And then the president comes in and he starts talking, which he had no control over. And you see Fauci covering his face, and he's like, oh, this is gone, this is not going to work. And the whole process, it was a failure of communication between the political leaders and scientists, between leaders and people, and it was a very clear case of not paying attention to the facts. This is a graph I just got. It got published in New York Times this morning, and I was looking at it and see how the politics becomes, affects the science, right? We know that vaccine is very critical in controlling the pandemic. I mean, it has been proven beyond doubt. But what this graph shows is the people who supported previous President Donald Trump versus the people who voted for current President Biden. And on y-axis, you have the residents not vaccinated. So it is they did a county level study, and it is very clear now that the people who support or supported previous president, they did not believe in vaccines, and they are not getting vaccines. And these are the states where the COVID is almost uncontrollable level right now. Whereas in the other states, the COVID is pretty much under control. So the politics plays a very big role in how science is shaped in the society. Okay, we discussed all those things, and but we come back to the same question, that can science help India achieve its growth potential? It wants to become a $10 trillion economy. It wants to lead the world in sustainable development. After having looked into all these things, after having listened to a lot of people, my answer is yes. Then I would say but. What is that but is all about? This is important. India has two fault lines. This is the language that I am borrowing from our Raghuram Rajan, our Reserve Bank governor, or he was some time ago, he was Reserve Bank governor. Now he's back in Chicago as a professor. He had identified fault lines for the global economy. I'm using the same language, but this is the different set of fault lines. I think India has two major fault lines sort of, lying there, and it can sort of bring down the economy, bring down the society, create a lot of chaos. The one is corruption. When we talk about corruption, there are sort of two levels of corruption. One at the policy level, that people bribe, influence the policy and things like that, which the political system has some control over. And the other level is the transaction level, which for me is very bothersome, in the sense that anyone who is an entrepreneur, wants to start a business, for example, will have to deal with bureaucracy that is not very supportive. I mean, if you want to register a patent, or if you want to start a company, if you want to do something, you really have to deal with this the transaction level corruption, which is difficult. The other one is inequalities. I mean, you go across India, north, south, east, west, wherever you go, the inequality is very staggering. You have income inequalities, you have social inequalities, and rural-urban divide, language. So what this inequalities does is could create social unrest, and it can affect whatever progress that we might make in the coming days, or whatever that we have made could be undermined by the inequality of within the society itself, because particularly with the good democratic system, the inequality can unravel the whatever institutions that we have. This is something that I found recently that got published in the Transparency International. And what this does is it gives us a sort of comparative bribery rates in 2020, or it happened in 2019. This is a percentage of public service users paid a bribe in the previous 12 months, right? So what if you compare India with, say, China, Japan, Korea, you find overall the 40% of public service, 40% of users paid some sort of bribe in the last 12 months, which for me is a good indicator that something is not right. For example, the IDs, 41% of people who got the IDs paid some sort of bribe, whereas in Japan, no one paid to get an ID. The corruption can be a national security risk. If these kinds of things can happen, police, for example, 42% of people who used some sort of police service paid a bribe. Whereas in Japan and South Korea, it is 2% and 8%, which is very low. China is 23%, but still it's much lower than India. So what I mean to say here is India needs to be very careful with the kind of corruption that we have, particularly at the very transactional level, at the use of public service, public schools. I mean, for example, the 22% of parents said that they have paid some sort of bribe to get their children to school. I mean, so these kinds of things need some special attention. All right, having said that, I would like to leave you with this 10 big ideas that I thought would be good opportunity for these fresh graduates to pursue, and also for faculty at the UASB or anywhere else. And also these are the areas where India has a chance to lead if it chooses to. For example, the water security and energy. This energy, I mean, agriculture as a supplier of alternative energy or clean energy, for me, is very attractive in the sense that, in the agriculture has such vast land, and so take advantage of, whether it is be able to generate the solar energy or wind energy, water energy, whatever it is. If agriculture can be a supplier of energy along with food, then it's a good it's good for agriculture. Similarly, the soil health and agriculture productivity, which is going to be very critical going forward, particularly given the climate change and water scarcity. Post-harvest technologies, I think we all know the proportion of our agriculture produce gets lost during the after harvest, which is, I think, significant. Skill development and future of work, particularly in the post-COVID era, and also the new technology requires new skills. Farmers needs to be skilled to operate many of the new technologies, and I think that's is a good area for work. Health and nutrition, bioscience and biotechnology. If physics and chemistry dominated the 20th century, I think bioscience and biology is going to dominate the 21st century. And then, of course, no country can progress without exports. So trade and competition is very important. Data science and science communication, I think we discussed that a little bit, I think is very important. This is what Greek philosopher Socrates said. True wisdom comes to each of us when we realize how little we understand about our life, ourselves, and the world around us. My personal experience is that the more I read, the less I know. So it has always been my experience. So I always feel that I have a lot more to know, a lot more to learn, a lot more to understand than what I already know. Thank you very much.
Can science help India achieve its growth potential? Your flow of thoughts in the form of necessary conditions, sufficient conditions, need for investment in education and research institutions, improvement in environment for entrepreneurship, science communication. India's fault lines were imaginative, invigorating, and insightful. Thank you very much, Dr. Makki Shiva Subramanya. Now, there are a few questions from the audience. I'll read out, okay? And mainly they are related to investment in R&D.
Okay.
One is, sir, do you think the yield gap in rice reported between India and China is due to poor R&D investment in India? Or is there any other issue?
Yeah, I mean, it is a whole bunch of issues, right? Even when, I mean, I go back to my own thesis and figure out what the causes of yield gap. It is technology, it is management, it is a whole bunch of things. So the R&D will form the basis, and then you can build upon what needs to be done along with it. So, but without R&D, that what so-called the intercept shift in economic terms, we will not be able to bridge that gap. Just the management alone will not be able to bridge that gap. It really have to take a, you know, the shift needs to be significant, and that shift will have to come from R&D and the science investments.
Thank you. And another question is, basic understanding is crucial for translational research. Why support for basic and strategic research is poor globally, including World Bank?
World Bank doesn't do any basic research. We did a lot of applied research, and even there, it is very limited to whatever that is needed in developing countries. It is not something like a blue sky research where you pursue something out of interest in the ideas, right? So the World Bank research or some of these, the bigger institutions and also private sector research is always driven by the need of the hour or need of the time and whatever that is needed for that particular purpose. For example, you know, National Science Foundation funds a lot of basic research where need is not really an issue. There, the question is whether or not that leads to something interesting. You know, they try to raise questions and then they fund it. So the difference between the basic and applied, they're by two different sets of objectives, and therefore you may not find the institutions like the World Bank doing a lot of basic research. So the support from the World Bank to basic research is limited. Whereas from, you know, the institutions like National Science Foundation does support basic research, but, you know, their size is not that big yet.
Thank you. And one more question is, what are the reasons for a huge gap in labor efficiency between India and China? Labor efficiency.
Right, yeah, the labor productivity is very, very huge. I think again it reflects. I mean, you also saw the yield gap, which also is reflected in the labor productivity, right? So it is technology, it is management, it is, I mean, it is even post-harvest technology, for example. It is not just on farm. I mean, if it is, when you're talking about the agriculture productivity, if it is the market price versus the, you know, what is being spent on the farm, then all your post-harvest transportation, all those things are reflected in that productivity gap. So
yeah,
I'm not surprised by that, the productivity gap between India and China, or India and Japan, India and the US. It's quite significant.
Thank you. Do you have sufficient data for predictive analytics? Can we predict future R&D requirements, precisely manage natural resources for durable and sustained services or benefits?
No. Unfortunately, no. I wish I could do that. I'm sure somebody should be able to do it though. I mean, we do all sorts of forecasting, predictions, and all those things, right? So there must be a way to do it, but I have not tried it or I haven't done it.
Okay. How to avoid bribery? Do you think primary education can help minimize the problem?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I mean, I was thinking about how science and technology can reduce bribery, right? For as part of this, I was always trying to see how to make use of the science to solve all the problems that society faces, whether it is inequality or bribery. I mean, the corruption. So, for example, transparency is one of them, where if you can record everything live in a police station or in a revenue office or these kinds of places, there is a tendency people don't want all these things done openly. So there could, I mean, a technology could play a role, but uh, I mean, I don't know to what extent education is going to help, because I mean, we are all told moral stories in education. I mean, we know that paying corruption, I mean, giving corruption or accepting money is both are bad. But then the circumstances pushes lots of people to do this, like you know, parents bribing schools to get the admission. Even here they have done it in the US. So how it can change, it has to be a very gradual process. It has to you know, I mean, one of the things that one of the example that I always give is, you know, changing the government at every level, every time, is a way of cleaning up the system. And in the state of the state report, you notice that the least corrupt state in India is linked with the change of government every 5 years. Whereas the state that has same government year after year in the same party in power is more corrupt than the state that has, you know, change of government frequently. So I don't know whether that is something, just a chance factor, or that is something. So the getting rid of corruption is not going to be easy, particularly in India. It is very I mean, deep rooted at this time.
Thank you, Maki Shiva Subramania. If there are any more questions, they may be mailed to Dr. Maki Shiva Subramania.
Sure.
And it was an excellent talk, and the answers were very apt. And we hope we get more opportunities to have such thought-provoking interactions. Thank you very much, Maki Shiva Subramania. ಬಹುಶಃ ಈಗ ನಿಮಗೆ ನಿದ್ದೆ ಮಾಡೋ ಸಮಯ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ.
Yeah, I'm good. No worries. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you everyone who participated in it. And for those graduating students, if you have any questions, whether from my slides or from my talk or anything else, please feel free to contact me, send me an email. I will respond to you. And this is my university as well, and I'm hopefully when I come there next time, I'll see you all in person, and it will be nice.
Thanks from the Directorate of Postgraduate Studies, sir. Please join us for tomorrow's talk also, sir.
Yes, I will. Of course, I will join. I want to hear what Kalidas has.
Around the same time, I think you had to spare your sleep time.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's, you know, 3 days. I'm okay. I'm yesterday, today, tomorrow, and I probably stay for Sharmila's
Okay, fine.
presentation as well. I don't know her, but my guess is that she was in my class when I taught the marketing class for horticulture group in 1987, 87, 86, 86, 87, 88, around that time. So yeah, she could have been in one of those classes. Yes, yeah. So
Dr. Makki Shiva,
fun to be back. Yeah.
Dr. Makki Shiva, you have promised and you have to keep the promise.
Pardon me?
ಬರ್ತೀನಿ ಭೇಟಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಮಾತು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀರಿ, ಉಳಿಸ್ಕೋಬೇಕು.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
I will,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Srinivas. I mean, it was so kind of you for bringing me, and thank you to Banu Prakash.
It was a very homely talk, sir. It was a very homely talk.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
ಮನೇಲೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ದಂಗಾಯ್ತು.
I know. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
We are grateful to the Dean PGS, Dr. Srinivasa, and all the members of his team, the PG Directorate. And also, we are thankful to Dr. Nataraj Karba and his team, Dr. Bannerlal, Nagesh, and all others. Thank you very much.